Alright then, this is MattCat, aka the Solo Gamer, and today, after that awesome intro, we are doing Mass Effect 3, last of the Mass Effect trilogy featuring Commander Shepard, and as you'll no doubt notice, we're doing my female Shepard Vanguard, although I think in this case I switched her over to a Sentinel. And if I remember correctly, she is going to start up here in just a second. Now that being said, there we go. This was a game that I was very excited to play. And it's arguably one of my favorite game series in this era. And hands down, the Mass Effect series probably got more playtime out of me than anything ever. And the only thing that would have surpassed it is if I played MMOs. I do not, so Mass Effect is still the champ. Now, as I recall, I was somewhat torn trying to choose between doing a Sentinel or a Vanguard, because I had played Vanguard in number 2, absolutely adored it. I tested out the Vanguard in the demo, and while I thought it was cool, I still didn't like the way that it sort of put you in the middle of the biggest combat situations without an out. You couldn't actually dash back out quite as quickly if you wanted to, if you weren't prepared for it. On the other hand, playing a Sentinel, you can do some crazy mix-up tricks with your various biotic abilities. The warp technology, the shockwave, and especially with the singularity and warp together, you can just ruin people. Very effective. Very fun too. So I believe I stuck with Adept on this one. Yeah, I went Adept, and there's Jennifer Shepard. I actually named her after her voice actress Jennifer Hale, who's arguably the best female voice actress in the game industry, in my opinion. I met her when I went to PAX last year. Wonderful lady, have a signed poster from her. She is just as nice as you would imagine, though I sort of felt a little sorry for her because she was being absolutely mobbed that day. Still, she is hands down one of my favorites. Now you'll no doubt notice that what we're seeing right now is the introduction featuring Hackett. And essentially it's him saying that everything that Shepard had been saying for the better part of 2 games, you know, the Reapers, the invasion, all the junk that the Council and everybody else kept saying was crazy, well, not so much. And as you can see, Earth has its fleets, and they're all ready to go wreck everything, and they're holding the line, and all that good happy stuff. And to be honest with you, from the moment this game started, I had a feeling that this would not end well. to be honest, I knew that humanity wasn't going to have much of a prayer right out the gate given what had happened in the previous games, but you're dealing with probably one of the best games I've ever played. In number 1 and number 2, I was sort of a little bit skeptical that they could meet the expectations. I thought that was cute, with the kid playing the Starfighter games with a little toy and, you know, juxtaposing the innocence of youth against the undoubtedly horrible events we're about to witness. And there's Jennifer Shepard and
Commander.
Manny Vega.
You're not supposed to call me that anymore, James.
Not supposed to salute you either. We gotta go. The Defense Committee wants to see you.
You'll no doubt notice that the game's visual clarity is just as good, if not better, than the previous 2
What's
games.
going on?
Although I did feel that the facial recognition effect was a little bit, I don't know, sketchy.
Anderson?
Admiral.
And it was sort of odd that the visuals behind it were just,
It's not so bad once you
they
get used
felt
to
so
how
clean and
food
crisp
smells.
and vibrant, yet the characters both looked better, and yet at times animated a little less fluidly than I thought. Then again, I could just be nitpicking. But here's me and Anderson having an argument about, you know, what supposedly is happening. Everybody's panicking. There's a huge force coming from the outskirts of the galaxy. You know, I'm not about to buy that, you know, it's anything other than the Reapers.
And we're not ready for them, not by a long shot.
And I thought this game was interesting because in most of the Mass Effect series, your Paragon and Renegade were separate routes. You could expand them equally, but that usually meant that one or the other wound up being shortchanged. In this game, it's all one bar, and the percentage that bar is filled by your actions determines what choices you can make and how your choices are presented. Now here's Anderson yelling at me for blowing up the mass relay in Arrival, which was one of the Mass Effect 2 DLCs, and if you hadn't played it, this conversation is completely different. What essentially wound up happening was I blew up a mass relay, killed 300,000 Batarians, and they are super ticked at me right now. Unfortunately for them, when the Reapers did show up, they were the first to get hit, and the Batarians were more or less annihilated within a few days. So, sucks to be them. And here we go, they're about to introduce a returning character.
Shepard.
And Shepard and Vega sharing some friendship there. And here's Ashley.
Shepard.
Ashley?
Major change for this character. She is very different looking than she had been previously.
I'm just waiting for orders now.
Of course, this is the first time I think we've ever seen her out of her armor, except for when in the first game you'd see her wearing like the standard,
Sorry,
you know,
man. Didn't mean to keep you out of
tank tops and everything like a regular Marine. This is the first time she's worn anything other than that, and it's actually really good looking.
I'm sure you had your reasons.
And of course, me being the forgiving sort that I am, I totally blow off all the animosity from the second game. Which, fair to say, I mean, I couldn't blame Ashley for being angry at me at the time, but what can you do?
You know the commander?
Now, the story for this game is probably the best. I don't know, I'd say, in my opinion, it had the best setup in history because it had 2 whole games behind it. And now it's up to them to deliver on that, you know, setup with a big payoff. And I personally feel that, as you'll see, they really start things off with a bang, quite literally.
The reports coming in are unlike anything we've seen.
Now, here's the council, you know, these defense committee, whatever they are, arguing that I'm, you know, that I was right, and they just don't want to admit it.
You brought me here to confirm
Which,
what you
to be
already
frank, I can't say I blame them.
are here.
Blame them. You hear someone saying that an entire race of alien machines from billions of years ago is coming to wipe out your race. Sounds a little crazy, no matter what that person went through.
This isn't about strategy or tactics.
And, you know, I'm essentially giving my, you know,
The Reapers are more advanced.
hurrah,
than
you know,
more
fight to the
powerful,
death
more
speech and all that junk.
intelligent. They don't fear us. And they'll never
Which, Jennifer Hale, I do have to give the male voice actor some credit. I've played both sets, and the male voice actor does a commendable job.
If we're gonna have
He
any
just
chance
does
of
not
this
match up
progress,
to Hale. And honestly, that's always been the case in the series.
It. That's our plan?
Admiral, we've lost contact with Luna Base.
The moon? It couldn't be that close already.
They get past our
And
defenses.
anyway,
Sir,
they're
UK
now
headquarters
getting
has
reports of problems. And I always found it hilarious that, you know, the Keith David, the character who plays Anderson, actually does more work in the video game industry than I can remember him doing in the movie industry. Now, granted, I don't know his full filmography, but I've seen him in at least a half dozen games, if not more. He just has that commanding, deep baritone that's so commonly used for video game characters, and especially those in authority or powerful characters, or sometimes evil characters too, but not in this case. And I think of all the NPCs,
the only
Anderson
thing we
was
can. We fight
always one of my
or
favorites.
die.
We should get to the Normandy.
I think among the NPCs you interact with in the series, Anderson was one of my favorites. I think among the player characters, my absolute favorite has always been Thane from the second game. Him and Garrus. Move, people. Oops! Yeah, I don't think that went well. I need a new desk, new spine. Well, thankfully Shepard still got all the Cybernetic upgrades from Cerberus, so lucky for her, she just gets a little bashed around a bit. Now, this version of Shepard was actually partially based on a photo of Jennifer Hale I found while actually, you know, doing my earlier playthroughs on Mass Effect 1 and 2. And as I kept playing through the games, I kept refining them, so. And guess who's come to dinner? Quite literally. So like I said, first 10 minutes of the game and we have an entire city being leveled. Quite literally. And off we go, starting the gameplay.
Come on, Shepard. Ashley's headed to the Normandy.
Achievement, 5 points. Now, I immediately went ahead and started making some minor changes, mostly because one of my biggest things is I always play with subtitles on, and that has more to do with minor hearing problems I have than anything else. But I still like to be able to make sure I understand what a character is saying. Whoa! Crud. How do you beat something so powerful, Anderson? Good question. I'll get back to you on that.
It's farther than it looks.
In fact, that is the whole point of the game, is answering the question, how do you beat something this powerful? And, ooh! There goes some fighter craft, some of those stupid laser things from the last game. And the Reapers apparently are not subtle. Their weaponry and technology is extremely distinct, so when you see something from a Reaper, you know it's from a Reaper.
Lieutenant Commander, you read me.
And here we are making our way across the city rooftops, and neat features about the way they set up the game's environments is that it always is true to the ideals of the game. And if you look around on the rooftops, you'll undoubtedly notice that almost everyone has solar panels somewhere. So, despite having all this advanced technology, still supplementing it with the extra power of the sun. Which is actually pretty much what I'd expect. Now, I had played the demo, so this section was familiar. I'm out of ammo, still have my warp ability, still have my singularity. And these guys are being a pain. Super punch! And you get one too! Uh-oh. Run! Yeah, not so much. And that, well, that's one way to open a door.
Gotta find a way out of here.
Now this game plays really similar to the last one, and I am playing it on 360 because I never actually got the series on PC, and I just felt that it wouldn't be worth the effort to, you know, start over and do everything on PC when I already had the equipment to do it on a Xbox and I had the game capture card and everything. And this scene always seemed out of place to me, and admittedly after playing the game I sort of got it, but they do use this very well for, you know, setting up the emotional struggle that the character goes through.
Come here. I need to get you someplace safe. Take my hand.
You can't help me.
Shepard! In here.
And you look back and the kid is gone. Now, again, the voice work in this game was absolutely top notch, and I don't think there's any fault in that. I do think, however, that a lot of the characters didn't get nearly as much dialogue as they did in the previous games. Certain characters get tons of it. For example, Shepard, Anderson, Garrus, and a few others, they get tons of dialogue, both in and out of missions. And you see stuff like this, cutscene dialogue and stuff, especially with Shepard, Hackett, Anderson, and a few others.
We need to go to the Citadel. Talk to the Council.
Yes, let's talk to the same people who told us we were crazy for 2 games.
You said it yourself.
I'm sure that will work out well.
The Reapers will destroy everything if we don't stop them. The Council has to help us.
I know Anderson's an old warhorse and not an optimist, but that seems silly to me that he would even have any faith in them at this point.
That has to count for something.
Oh well.
Gotcha.
Ooh, almost gonna take a nosedive.
Thanks.
Wouldn't be the first time Shepard's made a long trip like that.
More than one.
Anybody who played Project Overlord knows what I'm talking about.
Reload.
Now,
Let's keep
time to
moving.
reload. And here's where you can see just the sheer detail in the backgrounds
Lieutenant Commander Williams, we're
and the
in front of
activity that
bridge.
goes on, how gorgeous it all is. I mean, you literally have something the size of a skyscraper walking around the background directly across from you. And even the background and vents are awesome. Check this. That ship's like, yeah, I'm gonna hold the line, I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna... Oh, crud. Boom. Yep, so much for that. And Shepard's none the worse for wear. As Garrus once famously said, they killed her once before, and all that did was tick her off.
Normandy, come
Not
in.
exactly sure it's gonna work this time either.
Friendlies.
Ah, some injured Marines.
You two all right?
Get down. They'll see you.
Ooh, well, now we know what happened to the Batarians.
Keep your head down.
For those of you who aren't familiar with the Mass Effect lore, and can't imagine why you'd be watching this otherwise, but the Batarians were a race of four-eyed aliens who had some serious beef with humanity. And these ugly guys are what's left of them. Minus some of the refugees you'll find later, but it's heavily implied that the Reapers hit Batarian space first and simply annihilated them. And now the Batarians are being used as shock troops.
Our gunship was shot down.
Not that
Barely
the
made it.
shock troops are
You have a radio?
really needed given how much firepower the Reapers have, but
There's one in the gunship.
they're nothing if not thorough.
With those things.
Stay here, son. We'll get you out of here.
I like this. It's like, yeah, we're gonna go across that place and fight that big thing with just our pistols. Now, at the time I played this, I actually had some bonus stuff that I'd gotten as part of a pre-order deal, and I actually wound up not using it. Because, not mainly because I didn't want to, because I actually forgot I even had it at one point. I got so into the game, I just completely forgot about it. Now, this whole scene was in the demo, and it's actually one of my favorites. Simply because it's precisely what I expected, and then it subverted it by being, rather than being a, rally the cavalry, charge the enemy type deal, it subverts it in a little bit, and you'll see what I mean. But, here I am hanging with warp and pistols and everything I've got, and these guys just don't give up. On the plus side, though, they've made the combat feel even smoother than it did in Part 2. And Part 2 was a huge transition from the first game. Ooh, cool, we got the Avenger. Alright, putting in a call through for help from the Normandy.
Normandy, this is Anderson.
Please come save us, because we're being hammered.
What's your location?
And the Reapers are right on top of our heads.
I'm activating his distress beacon. Send support. We've got wounded down here.
And it's hilarious because you're about to lose the signal,
Lost the signal.
and it's like, yeah, of course you're going to lose the signal. There's a Reaper standing on top of you. And more company. Now, apparently, the Reapers deliver their troops via orbital insertion meteorite. How that works, I do not know. Now, interesting thing here is that when you play as a Vanguard, you get ammo powers like, incinerate and what have you. And in this game, you still keep that ability, but it's, it's actually not as effective as you would expect, because you would just hit him with warp and it'll just eat him alive. And it's still good to have, because you don't get warp as a Vanguard, I don't believe. I think you get like throw and shockwave. But what I do like is that they've sort of balanced the characters and the classes much better than they had previously, where you could literally just be, a soldier in the first game and you'd more or less wreck everything in your path. And it took a long time to learn how to use the other character classes with any real effect. And in Mass Effect 2 they fixed that for a lot of the classes, and in this game they fixed it even more, because you now have, not only character-specific power groups, but you can also get groups of, of combat ability, special abilities like, I don't know, what's the best way to put it? You could combine certain special powers with a Sentinel, for example, and make them an almost inhuman tank. They'd just, be able to soak up so much damage it wouldn't even slow them down. On the other hand, with the proper training and development, the former squishy wizard can now be, a lightning bruiser glass cannon. As you'll see later in the game, as I get much better with the adept class that I'm playing, it gets to the point where I will literally have like half my enemies dead before my team even starts shooting, simply because I'm, laying out multiple assaults on them. And then here's one of those scenes that was really poignant when you did it in the demo. Anderson chooses to stay behind.
You saw those men back there.
Because he wants to, stay behind and lead, and I personally was conflicted. It's like, do I make a choice on this? And I didn't want him to leave, and I didn't want to have him stay behind, but I knew in the demo that this, was a one-way choice. No matter what you select, he stays, you go.
What if they won't listen?
Then make them listen. Now go. That's an order.
Now go, that's an order. It's like, I don't take orders from you anymore. And he tosses you your dog tags.
Consider yourself reinstated.
Which I thought was cool. I like the idea that they finally reinstate you after, Mass Effect 2.
I'll be back for you, and I'll bring every fleet I can. Good luck.
You too, Shepard.
And I like that Ashley doesn't even ask. She just follows orders and does immediately what you tell her. And this scene, if it had been a movie, would have been just like, you know, the ultimate doom and gloom scene, because this really sets the stakes for you. Same little kid that she saw earlier, and you're figuring they're all gonna get away, and then uh-oh, this thing. Apparently the Reapers now have small ground assault forces. And the kids on the shuttle to get away. And if you're like anywhere near familiar with movies, you know exactly how this is gonna end. And he does not get away, unfortunately. And that's just exactly what I expected, and yet at the same time I still did not have anything but hatred for the Reapers at that point. Which is exactly what BioWare does best. They can give you emotional cues and reasons like you wouldn't believe, and that's something they've been doing very well since the first game. It took them a while to get the gameplay up to scratch, but they've always done good with story and emotion. And particularly this poignant scene where you start seeing all this debris falling out of orbit, and you begin to realize what it is. It's what is left of your fleet, and there is not much. Apparently the Reapers tore through them like they didn't even exist. And that's about it. So I'm going to be wrapping this up with the title screen hitting the block, and it is official Mass Effect 3. And this is Matt Cat, and I will see you next time for part 2.